The first really vicious anti-Negro film was called The Birth of a Nation, and it was a honey. And the second worst thing about it was that technically in 1918 it was the best movie that had ever been made.
If you object to me using a clip of Bill Cosby, then buckle up or bail, because this video is about Birth of a Nation.
The Klan at that time was needed and served a purpose. Yes, I think it's true.
If you don't know, The Birth of a Nation was directed by D.W. Griffith, and was the first real epic of the silent era. The plot is about the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, and it is, in no uncertain terms, racist.
Birth of a Nation pretended to tell the story of the Civil War and what happened afterwards when the slaves were freed. White women couldn't walk on their own sidewalk, if you believe the picture. In the South, Negroes got the right to vote, and the movie showed black vote collectors refusing to accept white votes, and black people sneaking in extra votes.
American history is far from a strong point, so there may be a historian somewhere watching this saying, that's all true, that actually happened. But even if it were all proved to be true, it would not help this film be any less racist. You see, all the black characters that interact with white actors are played by people in blackface. And this maid character was not only played by a white actor, but a male white actor.
Birth of a Nation caused a lot of turmoil when it played. Did this bother Mr. Griffith?
Oh, he always caused turmoil. They called out the militia here when that was made, and France, when he made The Two Orphans, or The Orphans of the Storm, as we retitled it, they called out the militia there. When he made Broken Blossoms, they objected in England because the prizefighter father that beat me to death was an Englishman. Yeah. Finally, Mr. Griffith said, well, what am I to do? The only villains I can have are us. We realize that we've got some bad men, bad people among us.
Yeah.
Because he was always getting into trouble.
Yeah. But he was justifiably hurt, though, I think, over the accusation that he was against the Negro.
Oh, because they raised him and he loved them.
Yeah.
And they loved him. Any colored people that came to our studio, they gravitated around him and loved him. As a proof of it, there is a lady, Madame Sullivan, that's in The Birth. Mm-hmm. She had 2 sons, and they always had work wherever Mr. Griffith was. And when he died, who was sitting outside his room? Not me, not any of his friends. I don't know about his family. Madame was out there during his last days. And I worked in a television with one of the boys. And oh, they speak so affectionately. They said he was like our father. He looked after us all our lives.
Yeah.
You know, he was so deeply hurt by that, because if any man was against any kind of prejudice, I think it was Griffith. That's why he did Intolerance. Think as I think or be damned. Yeah. Or man's inhumanity to man.
That is the female star of the film, Lillian Gish, giving the I've got a black friend argument on behalf of Griffith in 1973. She apparently went to her grave adamant that this film was misunderstood.
So obviously this is a difficult film to spend a lot of time with, and in working on the BFI Film Classic, it occurred to me halfway through that I might be the first person to write one of these books who doesn't like the film that they're writing about. It's not someone you can really sort of take pleasure in. And as much as I spend a lot of time working on it over the years, I actually don't spend as much time with the film itself as I did for that. What I've been interested in primarily is the sort of legacy of the film, especially in the last 70 years, after about 1930 or so. So in addition to telling us a lot about 1915 and, of course, the residences to the present day, The Birth of a Nation really is a unique example in film history for a couple of things. There really aren't that many films that have been in continuous circulation for 100 years. Even a lot of things we regard as silent classics have often been sort of missing or rarely shown. Maybe some Chaplins are probably the closest thing to other films that have stayed in circulation. But because this Birth of a Nation has been in circulation, and because it's always been controversial, you can use it to understand in almost any decade since 1915 what people think about film, what they think film is for, what they think film should be for, what they think art is. And I'm particularly interested in the ways people argue about whether film is or is not an art. So in the 20th century, as racism has declined to some extent, but obviously not as much as we'd all like, nowhere near, At the same time, there's this other thread in which film rises from a popular medium. The same month that Birth of a Nation was released, in film was decreed by the U.S. Supreme Court to be a business pure and simple, effectively not an art and not protected by the First Amendment. But over the last 100 years, film has slowly, risen in the cultural ranks to be the kind of thing that everyone in the stage has a good job teaching at a good university teaching, right? None of our jobs existed even 50 or 60 years ago. So, as film has risen, as people have tried to make a case for film as an art, this has been the film that they have had to grapple with at every stage.
I do believe that film is art. I also think that removing problematic works from view, particularly this movie, would lead to a misunderstanding of the history of cinema. This film was a huge hit at the time of release. Shot for approximately $60,000 US, it went on to make millions. In fact, it was the highest grossing film up until Gone with the Wind in 1939. Birth of a Nation was also the longest film produced up until that date, running 12 reels, which at 16 frames a second gives it a running time of over 3 hours. And it is huge in terms of scope. Lots of extras and giant battle scenes, but it would be filmed with only one retake to correct a continuity error, which is impressive by anyone's standards. The grammar of the movie making, by which I mean the way it is shot and edited, is much closer to what a modern audience would see as present-day cinematic storytelling. Much of these techniques Griffith pioneered or invented. The recreation of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln is the highlight of the film for me, and possibly the director too, as he would explore the topic again in the movie Abraham Lincoln, released in 1930.
But is it irresponsible for us to recognize films for their technique in spite of the negative representations that they portray?
Well, that's a very interesting question because this is personal for me. I'm a graduate of NYU Film School, and it's a 3-year program. The first year, my professor screened the film Birth of a Nation, and they talked about all the cinematic innovations D.W. Griffith have come up with, this and that, but they did not. They left out everything that had to do with the social impact of the film. That this film regenerized the Klan. The Klan was dormant, it was dead. And brought about rebirth, and therefore, because of rebirth, there was a rebirth of the Klan, it led directly to black people being lynched, strung up, castrated, and just murdered. But that was never discussed.
So let's discuss that now. Spike Lee is correct to a point. This film's runaway popularity and positive depiction of the Klan contributed to its resurgence, which persisted in that form until about 1940. I'm told the Klan does still exist to this day, but not with the numbers they once had. Now, I have spoken on several occasions that I don't think cinema corrupts minds that weren't already corrupt. I have seen A Birth of a Nation all the way through at least twice, and at no time did I feel anything other than disgusted by the images I saw. But I am living in a time when the worst thing you could possibly be is racist. The mere accusation can ruin careers. Again, American history is not my strong point, but it was segregated until the mid-1960s. So in 1915, I think it is safe to say there must have been a certain tension in the air regarding race relations. A bubbling contempt which was already there, which this movie might have lit a flame under. As I can't imagine anyone walking out of this film as a racist unless they were at least a bit of a racist when they walked in.
Griffith was also totally against censorship, wasn't he?
I think all of us Americans are.
Yeah.
I think I liked good taste to come back, beauty to come back. We've lost beauty. And I think there's no relationship that if it's made beautiful that's offensive.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly the human body, look at the paintings and the statues we have of the nude bodies, how beautiful they are. We should take the old Florentine motto of the 15th century. Well, maybe they were in such trouble.
That's right.
And what they said was, do what you will, but do it beautifully.
Personally, I find Birth of a Nation to be an ugly film. That has nothing to do with the way it is shot, but its morals. Its message is ugly. And for that reason it is hard to watch and I can't recommend it. But it also has historical importance, both as a record of what people used to find acceptable entertainment in 1915, but also as an important milestone in the story of filmmaking. And because of that, it should be around for future generations to wrestle with. And if that sounds like a good way to spend 3 hours, you can find it in 4K on YouTube. I know it will feel strange hitting the like button on this one, so let's establish that any likes are for the review and not for the film. If you hit the thumbs down, I know it's because you like the movie and not the review. If you have too much money in your life and would like me to share that burden, you can send me some cash via this site. That's the sort of nice guy I am. I'm Scott Kingsnorth, and I'm making a movie.